I remind you that Sarah Palin is a granny. But I am proud to be here at Creating Change, and it's an enormous effort constantly to represent on the ground diversity, and that's what Creating Change believes in. It's wonderful to be here. We are a counterbalance to the rise of racism in this country, and we need to keep speaking out. So I am very proud to be here and proud to be your dominatrix. I had no idea. So it's with great pride and delight that we feature a group of young leaders at today's plenary session. Young leaders speak out loud and proud.
Hi everybody, my name is Gabriel or Gabriel. I work with Out Youth in Austin, Texas, and the Texas State. I wanted to make a quick announcement. Although we all self-identify as queer people of color, we are in no way representatives of all queer people of color. At the same time, we also want to recognize those not privileged enough to join us here and for the conference and who go through struggles and experiences that we may not experience and cannot come and experience this. It's a great feeling, so recognize that. Oh yeah, I wanted to jump in a little bit, and if you notice on that survey, the problems that we find to be the most affecting people today is homelessness, and they have just listed them. And unfortunately, the least ones were having to do, such as don't ask, don't tell policy and gay marriage. And we often forget that marriage is historically an institution of heterosexual male property of the woman's body. And has also introduced heteronormative oppression into First Nations people. I'd also like to say that you mentioned hate crimes to Matthew Shepard Hate Crime Act that was passed. I think it's really important that when we look at these issues, although they are important to certain queer people and queer communities, we have to remember there are a lot of other dynamics to them. So for example, when we think of hate crimes in prison and incarceration, like queer people and trans people of color who are going to those institutions, issues individually or with organizations, I think it's really important to not only keep that in mind, but have that on the front line of our agenda and our action. And I know that for our organization at Texas GSA Network, we help schools from all over the city and the state, and specifically in Austin, to not just help like gay and straight people like come together, but also think about like racial justice and economic justice, segregation in cities and how that's difficult in terms of the public school system. And so just a point to really think about every side of an issue. Yeah, and definitely immigration, not just from Mexico, but from all over the world, is definitely an essential issue to queer politics. I have a very similar story, but there are also so many dimensions to immigration. Whereas Jesus is like first generation immigrant, I'm second generation. So my parents grew up on the border, which is Chicano land, and I grew up in Austin, and I was the first brown person and Chicano in my family to grow up in an all-white neighborhood, go to an all-white school, and live with the socioeconomic status that was middle class. So that was huge for me, especially as a queer person, to have such a kind of unusual intersecting identity. And it was hard for me to feel not only accepted at school or in my neighborhood and such, but also feel like I knew who I was and knew my roots and knew like I was being supported. And I know my organization has really definitely welcomed me and understood that, and I've heard my voice out, and I think it takes a lot of outreach too, because a lot of immigrants who aren't here legally don't know how to find those resources, or are afraid of going to those resources. So.
And this has also impacted your organizing, right? I mean, it shapes the way you think about activism. I know, for instance, Gabriel, you've been deeply involved in all kinds of stuff in the Austin public school systems that go beyond LGBTQ issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to tell us a little bit about some of that activism?
Yeah. I find in Austin that nonprofit organizations and organizations in general who do social justice work are very separated from each other. So while I may work with Out Youth, which is a drop-in center for queer youth, I also work with an organization called Padilla, people organized in defense of orphan resources. And they do a lot of racial, economic, and environmental justice on the east side of Austin. The east side of Austin, just real quickly, is a historically segregated part of Austin in which in 1928 all of the people of color were designated to that area. So there are a lot of queer youth there, but they're not necessarily being helped. And then, let's see. So yeah, like these nonprofits are not coming together and working about how like their issues are similar, how there are queer youth on the east side, how Out Youth needs to think about environmental racism or like issues like that. So it comes up difficult for me to kind of have to switch identities when I go to different organizations.